So the Bears settled 1 year, $10 million on Andy Dalton. We love to blame coaches, and we love to blame quarterbacks. Yesterday was lousy GMing by Ryan Pace of the Bears. So since he took the job, here's the 4 quarterbacks he's gone and acquired. Mike Glennon cost him a fortune, traded for him. Mike Glennon. Traded up to get Mitch Trubisky. Didn't have to, could have still landed him. Nick Foles made him the most expensive backup in the NFL. And then Andy Dalton. Nice guy, but this is an easy one. The Bears' offense needs a playmaker. It's why Mitch Trubisky actually won. Marcus Mariota is a better fit than Dalton. Sam Darnold, hard to get perhaps, better fit than Dalton. Deshaun Watson, perfect, probably couldn't afford him. The worst literal fit for this Bears offense, which is an average offensive line, outside of Allen Robinson, very weak skill people. The worst fit is a non-playmaking distributor with a low ceiling. That's Andy Dalton. Marcus Mariota would have worked here. I mean, in order of perfect fit, Deshaun 1, Darnold 2, Mariota 3, Trubisky 4. Remember, Trubisky shouldn't have won games in Chicago. It's the windiest city in America. Northern, cold weather, and they also played road games, like in Green Bay. Not a very strong arm and not a very gifted thrower. And it's windy. He should never have won games. But he actually did. Why? Because he's a good athlete. And he ran around, and despite an average offensive line, and Tariq Cohen gets hurt, and one decent receiver, Mitch Trubisky has a winning record. His all-time winning percentage is right around Bill Parcells. He actually won games. I think Matt Nagy's a pretty clever coach. But when there are indications in Andy's career, and they're right in a resume, that if you give him a lot of good targets, early Cincinnati and Dallas last year, you can win games with Andy Dalton. I mean, Dallas, if you count the game he came back against the Giants, he was 5-5. But you can't ask Andy to make plays with average wide receivers and an average O-line. And not only is Ryan Pace, the GM, bad at the quarterback thing, he's not good at the public perception thing, and that matters in a city like Chicago. It's the 3rd biggest city in America, highly educated. This is a city of smart sports fans. They know what they're doing. The smartest people in the Midwest gravitate to Chicago. And you got smart, a lot of college degrees. They know their sports. There's a lot of history. You can't fool Chicago sports fans. They're a little bit like Boston fans, but nicer. And Ryan Pace butchers the public perception thing. Remember years ago, he went and he signed Mike Glennon to a huge contract. They had a draft party, and he drafts Mitch Trubisky with Mike Glennon at the draft party. Not good. Then he gets involved in the Russell Wilson sweepstakes. Those go public. There's multiple stories out today on those. And he settles for Andy Dalton. So listen, you can make a lot of mistakes as a GM, but when you get in a Boston or a New York or a Philly or a Chicago, you get into these die-hard northern sports towns, you got to get the quarterback right, and you got to get the public perception stuff right. Chicago's got teeth as a sports town. And, right, that was lousy GMing. This is the worst literal fit. And Matt Nagy's going to lose his job over this, and he can coach. The Seattle-Chicago stuff, I always like this. When I hear something from sources and then 4 or 5 days later it comes out and it's all true. And I think, okay, I had good sourcing on this. So about 4 or 5 days ago, I said, Chicago's making a huge run. Somebody I trust, a huge run on Russell Wilson. They're meeting, they're talking, and Seattle's listening. And so Ian Rappaport's a great NFL reporter, came out and said that, yes, Ryan Pace and John Snyder met in North Dakota right after Trey Lance's pro day. They sat down, they talked, offers were exchanged. The Bears made a big offer, multiple first-round picks. That's what I was told. Seahawks slept on it. Seahawks discussed it. And then yesterday, Pete Carroll said, I'm 70. I'm too old to rebuild again. And that's how it ends. They're going to keep Russell Wilson. Now, the age thing is something this show, every show talked about. It was obvious. It's why Nick Saban to Texas. Remember those rumors years ago? I was like, Nick's 65. I'm not sure if he wants to rebuild again at 65 years old. Rebuilding is like a 50-year-old guy thing. It's not a 70 or late 60-year-old guy thing. And so this is the best result for Seattle, obviously. First of all, you were never going to get fair trade value. Second of all, there's a ton of dead cap money. And third, there was no quarterback exchange. The Raiders made a little sense because you could get Derek Carr. Chicago didn't make much sense. So, and the other thing is, I don't think Pete and Russell were ever meant to be close. There are quarterback coaching connections that I think feel like they should work. Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Andy Reid's he's a mentor. He's a very clever play designer, and Patrick Mahomes a very clever playmaker. Perfect. Sean Payton, Drew Brees, both intense, both smart and clever, both innovative. That works. Aaron Rodgers, Matt LaFleur, young, successful, good-looking, always looking for new stuff guys. Those feel like they should work. But Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson, it's not really ideal. At best, it should be respectful and professional. Pete's 70, defensive-minded, would prefer running the ball, likes control, bit of a rock star. Russell Wilson's always been overlooked, would rather pass the ball. He's young. He has an ad-lib component in the offense that really makes him. Pete's not a big fan of ad-libbing. So this has never felt like a perfect relationship. By the way, Brady Belichick was never perfect. One guy was happier, one guy was grumpier, but they did start at the bottom together. That mattered. So remember, Belichick was on the hot seat after that first year in New England, and here's Brady. So they started at the bottom together, and they were both aspirational. But if you look at it in Seattle, this relationship's always felt a little uneven, that Pete's gotten more credit than Russell. And you have to remember, Pete was already a rock star when he got there. Okay? And then even when he drafted Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson started blowing us all away, Pete got credit for it. Oh, Pete found him. Unbelievable. Pete Carroll's unbelievable. So Russell didn't even get credit for being great. It was, Pete found him in the third round. And then Russell, add to that, never gotten an MVP vote. Sacked 400 times in 9 years. Doesn't get much say in the offense. I'm not making excuses, but I get Russell Wilson and what's in his head right now. I get hit a lot. I got no say. I don't get an MVP vote. And even when I broke into this league and shocked the franchise, the coach got credit. So this relationship to me, it's not ideal. It's a little uneven in terms of who's getting credit and who has the power. But I think Brady and Belichick figured it out. Do you have the same goal? Are you both aspirational? Yes, yes. And you just make it work. I do think, and I'll get to this later, I do think there is a free agent move for Seattle that could be an olive branch to Russell Wilson. And actually, because Pete Carroll's gotten beaten up in the last year by media people, would put the heat back on Russell Wilson. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.